Hey, what's going on, Podcast Nation? It is Jason Harris here, and thank you for joining me for this amazing Yachtcast, sponsored by Matador.
Welcome to the Matador Yachtcast. Tune in for everything you need to know to stay in the know regarding the automotive industry. Here's your host, Jason Harris.
I have some amazing guests with me. We get to talk anything and everything we want to talk when it comes to automotive. But I have the one, the only, the oh-so-famous Miss Sandy Zannino with me. Sandy, what's up? How you doing?
Hey, I'm so happy to be here.
This is going to be fun.
This is fun.
This is going to be fun. I have the oh-so-knowledgeable, all right, Tom Kline. Tom, how are you doing?
I'm great. Good to be here.
All right. And I have the master of IT himself, John Acosta. John, what's up, man?
Good, man. Thanks for having us.
We're gonna have some fun.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, we're down here in sunny Tampa, Florida.
Very sunny.
I haven't seen the sun in like 4 months. So guys, I gotta be honest with you, I'm super stoked to be down here. And it's like this is gonna be awesome. But we're right outside of the Tampa Convention Center where they're gonna be having the Digital Dealer Conference. You guys got a really cool session coming up. It's kind of like the Radio Shack of like all sessions. It's like you got questions, we have answers, right?
That's it.
So I get to kind of play my version of that session where I get to ask you guys questions. You guys are gonna have to give me answers, and we don't have any script today, so we're just gonna go wherever the heck we feel like going. But we're gonna have a lot of fun doing so. But before we get into the conversation today, I love kicking off podcasts with a little origin story. Because I'm always fascinated how people get started in this crazy little world we call the automotive industry. So Sandy, I'll start with you, and then I'll work my way over to you, John. Sandy, how did you get started in the automotive industry?
Well, in a land far, far away. No, not that.
Right. Sorry, I had to do that.
In 1998, I really kind of fell into automotive, right? As I hear many other women say. Mm-hmm. It just kind of happened. It was not my plan. I fell into it and then fell in love with the people that work in this industry, really, and which is good because people is my work.
That is your
right?
job.
That is what I do.
You're the HR expert.
I am the automotive HR expert. Absolutely.
We're glad you fell into it.
I am glad too. That sometimes you just don't know. You think something is maybe not the greatest thing, but there's always a plan because it works out wonderful. So I'm happy to be here. Thank you.
Tom, yourself, how did you get started in the automotive industry?
I'm actually a third-generation car guy.
Oh, he was born into it.
I was born, yep. So my grandfather started in the business in 1925 with the motto of courtesy and fairness. And my father and my uncle and my brother, and we were all in it. So here I am almost 100 years later. My family's been in the car business.
That is so cool. That is so cool. Like you said, people stumble into it, and then there are other people that are born multi-generations.
Or forced into it. You can say how you want.
I got conned into it.
I got lured.
You got lured.
I got lured.
Hey, John, how did you get started in the automotive industry?
It's kind of an odd story. I have a odd backstory, but so I was in the military for 8 years, Air Force. And left the Air Force and I invented a product for hospice care back in the day. And my group of investors owned a dealership. I got my rear end handed to me after palliative care, right? So wasn't able to successfully launch that business. But they owned a dealership, and the dealership was losing money. So I had a quality assurance background, did some auditing of the dealership. We found, Miami debauchery in the place and fixed it. Took it from selling 35 cars to 135. Fell in love with the car business, and then once that project tied up, I became very good friends with our founder of VTech, and he invited me to come onto the company to help grow the business. So I've been doing it for the last 8 years, and love all IT systems, love all systems in general as far as the car business goes.
His before and after pictures are awesome.
Are they?
Yeah, it's like spaghetti junction, and then so clean.
Oh, I've seen some of those. It is absolutely amazing.
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah, it's so satisfying. Let's just say that. All right, hey guys, I get to ask the question, so I want to kick it off, with let's ask the question around pivot. Because, that's a word that we've only used a million times in the last 2 years. I got to be honest with you, I've used the word pivot more in the last 24 months. I think collectively I have my entire lifetime, and probably even beyond. Like, that's just it. Collectively, I will probably use it the last 2 years more than anything. So the industry really has kind of pivoted, right? And there's so many ways to pivot. We pivoted in technology, all right? We pivoted in the way we with our staff and how large our staff is, and what that means to the operations. We pivoted in technology. Like, there's just so much there. So I'd love to kind of get your guys' thoughts on how you think, what is the biggest pivot you've seen, I guess, in the last 24 months. Sandy, I'll start with you and I'll work my way down.
Starting with me.
Yes, I'm going to put you in the hot seat.
So when you say pivot, when I think about 2020, I actually think it was like a whirling dervish there for a while.
That's true.
Right, like around and around, and which way are we going? I hope, and I hope that it's, because a pivot is kind of like a half turn.
Yes.
Right? I would love to see one of the things that I'm so passionate about, diversity, equity, inclusion, be a real turn, right? Like, really turn around. And I really do believe that dealers are going to have to do that.
Well, I feel like the awareness in the last couple of years has definitely increased. And I don't know if that has to do with maybe the industry slowing down a little bit, and we're able to spend a little more time on topics that we don't normally get a chance around to, but it feels like there's a lot more conversation going around that.
I would absolutely agree with that, Jason. And I mean, we talked about it the last time we were together, and now is time to actually, to take some action. Yes. And make some steps toward making change.
Well, I think that's a good change, and let's hope that change is going to continue. That's a good snowball change, and that snowball change is going to continue. Tom, for yourself, what's the biggest pivot you've seen in the last 24 months?
I think, and this is not necessarily a good pivot, but everything that's new is also old, because the car business is such a business of the basics.
Sure.
And what I have seen is, even though there's a lot of talk about taking care of the customer, I still don't see dealerships taking care of customers the way they should. And I'll give you two examples. Number one, Napleton Automotive was just fined $10 million. And if you read the Federal Trade Commission press release, they did a survey, and then in the survey, 83% of their customers that they were surveyed said that they did something wrong, and that they added products into their loan that they didn't know about. That's crazy, 83%. Another example I'll give you is Vroom, and I don't remember whether you and I have talked about this, either on camera or off, but the Texas Attorney General just filed a suit against Vroom because they have thousands of customer problems that they're not handling. And so back to the basics, take care of the customer problems. And this is a risk mitigation issue, because, as well as a sales issue, right? Because you want customers to buy more cars from you.
Exactly.
But you also want to keep the regulators off your back. So taking care of customers and taking care of employees is the way to do that. That's 80% of a dealership's problems.
And I do see a lot more emphasis on that. I think not just because of the headlines that are coming out in the news. I just think as an industry, I think we're becoming more aware of it. And there's, I think, a lot more conscious, or let's call it intentional, conversations happening around that. So I agree with you. I think it's a great pivot. And again, another snowball of change that I hope continues to maintain.
Yeah.
John, for yourself, what's the biggest pivot you've seen in the last 24 months?
I mean, I would say the strengthening of adaptability, right, and resilience of the dealer body. And man, I've just I'm part of a group modern day car sales in Clubhouse. Meet every morning at 6:45 in the morning, and no, it's just like the coolest group of people on the planet. People from all different types of backgrounds that are adapting to the current challenges at hand, that really have the best interests of their organization and their people at heart. And you just see, it really is inspiring, and how much it's cemented my resolve to maintain myself in this industry and plow forward, because there's some inspiring stories out there, and people's ability to adapt, to overcome challenges, to take care of their people, to really go after it is really a beautiful thing, and it's been awe-inspiring this for the past 2 years.
I agree. Look, again, another snowball of change that I hope we just kind of continue to go on. Now, one of the things that I've seen, from a pivot perspective, which I think has a lot to do with technology and people, and it has to do with the way our teams interact with each other. Look, we're running now with smaller teams than we ever have in the past. Process has really become king. So because we're running with smaller teams, I find the intercommunication of these teams just kind of organically became tighter, which I don't think was necessarily the case prior to the pandemic, where you saw the sales department, the F&I department, and the BDC and the service, almost use smoke signals to communicate back and forth with each other. Now I think because we're just a lot of dealerships are running with smaller teams, we're tighter, and that conversation is tighter. I'm curious to get your guys' thoughts on how that has affected kind of the internal operations running with these smaller teams. I'll start with you, John, and then I'll work my way down to Sandy.
So I've got a weird perspective of this, right? Because I literally implement a product called Microsoft Teams, right, in dealerships.
There you go.
And so what's happened is like this almost maturation of the communication process inside the dealers, right? Mm-hmm. So you can have these channels where you have like all sales staff, all accounting staff, all parts, all the service, and everybody's cross-communicating through the platform. So it's become, that cross-pollination that happens at the dealership, and you can really actually see the dealership ecosystem working as a whole. It's like getting tighter, and you can use these productivity tools as like leveraging good habits, and you can look at the bad habits at its core and eliminate them immediately. So it's like this beautiful process of maximizing everybody's potential and then maximizing their engagement and maximizing the communication throughout the organization, which is creating a higher ability to maximize like random encounters, right? So people will like communicate through GIFs or memes, and then like running jokes, and then it creates this community sense throughout the organization. And it's just like this really empowering thing. And from the military is like, when you went through some stuff together, you went through some really crappy hard stuff together, it just creates this bond amongst team members that's really cool to see.
Mm-hmm. That's a good point. That's a very good point. Tom, for yourself, how do you think that?
I'm hoping, and haven't seen it myself, but I'm hoping that there's an increased camaraderie, which diminishes the "we didn't do anything wrong" program.
There we go. Yeah, I like that.
Right? Because lots of people at dealerships were like, this isn't my department's problem. This is your problem, and you fix it. Which goes back to taking care of the customers, right? So I'd say that's part of it. And then the other part is making sure that in that process of we did nothing wrong as a dealership, the customer still gets taken care of. So it's both departmental and from a cultural perspective.
I like that. That's a very, very good observation. I like that. Sandy, for yourself?
Well, I'm struck by something that John said, right? And actually, a department that you mentioned, accounting, it's often forgotten about as part of the ecosystem of the dealership, and you can't live without accounting, right?
Ain't gonna happen.
You can't, and
paychecks.
And it really, not just that.
They pay
everything.
Everything.
I worked in accounting for
It is
many
the brain,
years.
of course. I mean, but it is the everything in a dealership, and so often, sometimes forgotten. So I love this idea of having a communication system that makes it easier to communicate, because I believe what you said to 100%. Be completely true, John, that when people go through things together and feel like they are really part of a cohesive team, that and also that what I do matters to what you do. Because sometimes, I love dealers, right? But sometimes there is a disconnect. Right, there's a disconnect, which goes a little bit into what Tom said. I didn't do it. I didn't do it, Your Honor. It's not my job. Somebody else has the keys. It's not my RO. I didn't, So I love the idea of an ecosystem, a communication ecosystem.
It is a communication ecosystem, and I like the fact that we're kind of going down this rabbit hole, because I think the communication ecosystem goes beyond just internally, and it's like, how do we bring our customer into that ecosystem? Something very fascinating, because I've recently purchased a truck that I had to wait for. Right, it wasn't available. I had to wait. Only 8 weeks for the truck, better than 6 to 8 months for the truck. But that communication to me during that 6 to 8 weeks solidified all right, my loyalty to that dealership, 100%.
Sure.
They were on point. All right, I had a question, they had an answer. I actually sold myself several products because because the time was stretched out, right?
Sure.
So it was easy for me
You
to
kept upgrading yourself.
100%. It was easy for me to kind of text back the dealership and say, hey, look, you know what? I think I do want to do that tonneau cover and the running boards. Can you add that? And then parts jumps in. They send me a bill for it. Do you want to add to the financing? Yeah, sure. Okay. We'll let Sue the finance manager know, and she'll add it to your bill of sale. It was just like I just felt connected through communication to this dealership, and I feel like it was very unique, and I don't know if it was done intentionally or if it was just kind of a byproduct of them just running such a smaller team and requiring a closer communication ecosystem with themselves, that it became a byproduct to their customers. But I'd love to kind of get you guys' thoughts of how do we kind of, I guess, stretch out our communication ecosystem to our customer. How do we stay connected to our customer over some of these very long wait times that we're seeing and we're going to see? This is not going to change anytime soon. You know, for specific vehicles, for very certain manufacturers, there are going to be some seriously long wait times. So, Sandy, I'll start with you, and I'll work my way down.
Okay, so the front of the house and the customer touch points are not where I live, right?
Yep.
However, I do think it's really important for everyone to remember how important that is, because your customers are not just your customers; they're also your candidates.
Yes.
Right. So
I like that.
I just think that it's important as dealers are figuring out those different touch points, which obviously need to change and have more. I think it's great that you had this long. It's not great that you had this long wait for your car or your truck.
It actually created a better experience. I mean, I was annoyed by it at first, but now it's created a better experience.
Right, and maybe one day you'd be like, you know what, I could work with these people.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like,
Yes.
you've gotten to know them a little bit. So
Yes, 100%. Tom, for yourself, how do you think we kind of bring that customer into that communication ecosystem?
So over the past 3 weeks, I went car shopping myself.
Oh yeah, how'd that go?
I went to 7 dealerships, of which one asked me my name.
Jeez.
One salesman introduced himself. Not one salesman when they didn't have the product I asked for. And these were at Kia, Hyundai. These are Toyota. I mean, you know, just some of the nothing fancy. Nobody tried to switch me. I switched myself. Volkswagen was another one.
Okay.
I switched myself because they didn't have what I want in stock. So I said, well, let's go look at this one.
Sure.
There's been no follow-up, no phone calls. The salesmen have gotten complacent because they're order takers at the moment. Mm-hmm. And so I'm hoping that the dealers recognize that this is the trend at the moment and starts training those salesmen from the car business has always been a business of the basics. You got to do the basics right. It's all blocking and tackling. And the first thing they need to do is go back to the basic on how to sell a car.
Yes. 100%. That's a very, very good point. You know, this is the time that I think in our industry where we're going to start seeing the cream rise to the top. You know, we're really seeing who the real operators are, you know, versus the ones that I think really kind of got by with their brand and the loyalty to the brand itself. You know, I think you're seeing people that are like, look, I'm going to use this time. I'm going to use this kind of maybe newfound, you know, opportunity to generate new processes to create better communication, both internally and with my customers. John, for yourself, how do you think we bring the customer into that communication ecosystem?
I think, you know, just to, you know, obviously I have bias in this, but through technology in some capacity.
Yeah.
And the proper leveraging of that technology. I've got a couple of dealer groups that, you know, have leveraged technologies like Update Promise, right, for service communication. And what they found is that through constant communication on a regular basis, the experience for the customer becomes a lot richer. And there's a relationship that's built, right? We've all built these relationships with people, with consultants on Zoom or on WhatsApp or whatever that looks like. This massive communication is just becoming, you know, meeting the customer where they are at that moment, right? And then I think in another capacity, like the use of social media is like how like Patrick Brown or Alex Flores, these guys export the culture of the organization through their cell phone, right? It's like if Tom's like, hey guys, we're here at the sales tower, and Tom, we're about to car today, and you're exporting that culture, and people are saying, hey, it's not as scary to meet with Tom or with Sandy, like at the dealership, and having those communications. Like the dealership is no longer confined to the walls of the store.
Yes.
It's the ecosystem, and I keep going back to this. I'm a systems guy, right? So I always go back to like
how you connect the dots.
how you connect the dots and how you look at the larger ecosystem of the organization. How do you export that as effectively as possible?
No, I think it's good. And I love the fact that you brought up culture, because I think that's a perfect segue kind of into my next question for you guys, because I've kind of found that there has been a internal staff culture, then there is a culture that I want to maintain with my customers, and they don't always align. And I personally, and I could be wrong, and I don't believe that should be the case. I think that the company needs to have one culture, and it's a culture that both customer and staff get behind. But I'd love to kind of get your thoughts. Sandy, I'll start with you, and I'll work my way down.
Well, I love any topic about culture, right? Any topic about culture.
Yes, we know.
And culture, and as far as when we're talking about the workplace, the best definition, and I probably said this the last time we talked, if we talked about culture, is that what is it like to work around here? And that could be different for different departments, right? Because in every, even in dealer groups, I have groups that with 3 or 4 stores, 3 or 4 different general managers, and there is a distinct culture at each of those stores. Hopefully there is a corporate culture overall, right? That is based in the company's core values that then show up as stories that you can tell in the dealership, right? And that people can see. So when it's integrity, a customer can then say, yes, I see that on their website, which, as my friend Carrie Wise says, is the dealership is an extension of your website, right?
100%.
So when they see your core value, integrity, and a customer can say, yep, I know that because of blah, 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 blah story that happened, right? So then you can connect those dots. So anyway.
That's
my
100%
culture.
No, but you're right, though. I mean, look, culture really is kind of defined by a series of stories. I was actually at a dealership waiting for a dealer principal to kind of be done with his meeting so I can sit down and kind of do my one-on-one with him. And I watched a technician leave the back of the dealership, come to the front of the dealership, to get on all fours, to crawl underneath the customer's car to look at something. And I don't particularly care what that was, but I can guarantee you right now that's not going to show up on an RO. All right, I took a picture of it. I immediately sent it to the dealer principal. I said, this is a moment that and here's the thing. When I had my dealership, I was guilty of this 100%. I did not do a good job of celebrating those small moments. I did not do a good job of that. All right, I celebrated the end of the month. That's what I did. All right, and I feel like that is a celebration not only for the customer but also for the dealership, and those are the things that we're talking about. Those stories.
Absolutely.
That's what makes a difference. 100%. Tom, for yourself?
I would say that the dealer principal may have his ideals that he passes on, but has he ever checked behind what he thinks is happening to know what's happening?
You think that's why there's 2 separate cultures? There's one for the staff and one for the
there
the
could
customers?
be, but
he doesn't
either,
check, he or she doesn't check it, right?
If you don't check and you don't audit, you don't know. That's
good point.
That's part of risk, right?
Culture audit. Is that what we gotta do?
Right, and I mean, Sandy, I'm sure can talk more eloquently than I about employee surveys and what are good in employee surveys and what are bad and how do you do them and all those specifics, of which that is not my area of expertise. But if you think you know what's going on, maybe you do. But when was the last time you checked Glassdoor, right? Which Glassdoor can be a key to what your employees really think. And employees can be your greatest asset, but they can also be a liability when they go to the EEOC because they feel discriminated against, or they feel like you're not treating them fairly, or any number of, obviously, regulatory agencies. So
and that obviously affects the culture in a big way. Like it
Sure.
really does. It goes to those stories. Stories can go both ways, right?
That's right.
They can be both negative and positive. Look, I love to kind of get the IT guys' perspective on this because I'm going to say right now, most IT guys I know, now I'm going to believe John is not one of these guys, but I would say most IT guys I know, they're like, culture, is it zeros and ones? I don't know. I can't put one and one
what's in
together.
yogurt?
So I'm
culture. It's in yogurt.
I'm a bit of an oddball when it comes to this stuff, right? It's like I think that there's dissonance between those 2 questions, and when there's dissonance between those 2 scenarios, is that it's like what the culture is, right? And what the culture looks good on paper, right? In some capacity, right? It's like
proverbial checkboxes.
Yeah, it's like,
Yes.
hey, okay, like value and integrity, and let's say that, and then what's happening inside the company is what it actually is. And I think this really points to the speed of the dealer. The speed of the leader is speed of the dealer, right? But
I like
also the dysfunctions of the leader are the dysfunctions of the dealer. And so you see leaders that are, so you hear these guys, David Long, Patrick Abad, Kevin Deutsch. Like, you hear these guys, and you walk into their dealerships, and it's undeniable. You walk in a dealership and you see the texture of the place. It has a vibe to it. And why does it? It's not
Definitely.
coincidence that these guys aren't tyrannical. They don't lose their minds. They're not throwing chairs across the showroom. They're not, old school, like whatever that is. But they're guys that take care of their people. They're guys that are constantly learning, that are working on. Can we cuss on this podcast?
100%.
They're working on their shit, right? They're doing some self-discovery, right? They're reading some books. They're doing some stuff, and that reverberates throughout the organization. And not only that, attracts people that have that same culture and vibe into the organization. Because you don't resonate with people that you don't share core values with, and they won't come into your company, or they'll come in, they won't stay. And that's the lasting power and the momentum that you have of the organization is really powerful thing. Ryan Sodikoff is a great example
Absolutely.
of that. I mean, he's
Ryan's
a
a great
great
example,
guy,
yeah.
right?
Absolutely.
I would love to work, live in, the middle of Virginia and work for that guy because you have this family vibe. You walk into the place and it has that culture to it. So I think that's that at a core. That's what it is.
A dealer has a culture whether they know what it is or not.
That's so true.
Right?
Right,
Like
yes.
either it is what their core values state or it isn't, or somewhere in between. And for me, one of the best ways to know if you have a little problem, if you want to know that, ask yourself if your current employees are referring their friends and family to come and work for you.
Oh, okay. I like
That's a
that.
great-
That's
yeah.
a great
Because
one.
if they're not,
Yeah.
I come up with a good one every once in a while.
That's a good one. That's a good one.
I think you come with more. In the future.
If they're- because if they're not, then you need to find out why.
100%.
Right.
That is really, really good. Hey, guys, I know we're getting towards the tail end of our conversation, but I do want to finish off with one more question because we're on a roll here, and I feel like we could easily go another hour if we wanted to. But hey, we're here. It's Digital Dealer Tampa. Man, there's so much to consume. There's so much amazing
to learn.
thought leaders here. There's so much to learn. If there's one thing that anybody's attending that you hope they take away with and put into action at their dealership, what would that be? John, I'll start with you, and then Sandy, I'll finish with you.
It's a community, man.
All right.
Like this community out here is some of the coolest people around. Like, I love being part of this. I love the momentum that's in it. I love how people have their backs. I love the Sunday afternoon conversations on your drive back. I know somebody specifically that does that. Calls another dealer principal and gives them coaching, one-on-one coaching sessions because they just likes the person. Like, there's a community here, and let's protect it. Let's grow it. Let's really show the U.S. what we're made of. And I think there's some really cool change happening.
100%.
Can we sing Kumbaya now?
Yeah, I
Oh,
know.
we
There we
need
go.
it.
I'm all about it. Let's do
That
it.
goes, all I know is all we need is love. Like that.
Oh,
Yeah.
there we go.
Oh, we need
but we're going to fade away with the podcast with that song.
The Yachtcast.
The Yachtcast.
Yeah.
I told you I'm on a
Yeah.
piano. It's like I feel like I'm at the piano bar.
That's right.
Tom, for yourself, what's one thing you hope everyone takes away with?
I hope everyone will hone their skill on how to ask a question.
All right, there we go.
I think it's a very underutilized tool that we all have to be able to ask the right question and to not be afraid to ask the question.
Willingness, yes.
The willingness to ask and stand up and just say, hey, I don't understand this, and what do I do in this situation? I know I've attended a lot of conferences over my years, and I didn't see enough of that. So I hope people who are attending will really be bold and ask whatever's on their mind, because everyone here, and I know a lot of them, but I don't know all of them, but we're here to help. We want to help, and so I would just encourage them to do that.
That's awesome. The automotive community is a very tight, a community, and very, very willing to help each other out.
Yeah, absolutely.
So no, I'm with you. I think that's a great one. Sandy, for yourself?
Well, when I think about the two panels, right? There's the DEI panel, and then there's Tom's panel on Tuesday, and there are going to be answers given and actionable items, and I hope that somebody takes something away from from that in order to begin to make a change, right? Changing the heart of our industry
Ooh, I
so
like
that
that.
we can change the culture and the face of our industry.
You're looking for a heart change.
Right.
I like that.
Well, I am looking for
Oh,
a
I
heart
like it.
change. You know why? Because I want our industry to stay here, and the generations that are coming are not very interested in coming into automotive.
It's a great point.
And I hope to make some of that change.
That's awesome. Hey guys, thank you so much for taking the time to jam with me today. This has been so much fun. You guys have yourself an amazing day. All right.
you.
Thanks, Jason.
Thank you.
Thanks for tuning in to the Matador Yachtcast with your host, Jason Harris. Don't want to miss new content? Be sure to check out the full podcast library at matador.ai to stay in the know. Remember to like, comment, and subscribe. Happy podcasting.